What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Modern Craftsman podcast, Modern Craftsman Monday.
Monday.
I skipped out last week, but I'm back.
Monday.
Are we doing that? Monday.
Oh,
Monday.
Monday. All right.
I wonder if people get annoyed with this.
Probably.
Let us know.
You probably skip right
No,
through it.
don't
Oh,
let-
you can go on the survey. You know
Yeah,
what?
go on the
Try the
survey.
survey monkey.
No, like, hey, I hate that intro, guys. Just get right to the good stuff.
I think I
leave
have.
leave a review on iTunes about the intro.
No, because if it's bad, we don't want it on iTunes.
Well, it could be.
Now we're talking about our reviews on the intro, and everyone's like, can we just know who's coming on? Who's coming on this week, John?
Brad.
Yeah, Brad, the inventor of iTunes reviews.
The inventor.
No, that's a different Brad.
Yeah.
Other Brad. Brad from AFT.
So this is his second time on.
11 different companies.
He owns 11 different companies. We get right into that, and we find out if he likes construction or business better. What do you
It's
guys
always
think?
good to talk with Brad.
Well, I think we do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't see the inner workings behind the scenes, and he's admitted that it's not necessarily what it appears on Instagram, which, you know, that's life in general, that's business in general. But he has a comprehensive knowledge of business, and kind of he's able to bridge multiple businesses, which is interesting, kind of how he relates them all and ties them back to each other and kind of helps each business feed another business, which makes my head spin a little bit too much, but he can do it.
For sure. Guys, this podcast is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. Ever needed that long length trim board that's over 11.25 inches wide to avoid a seam or some sort of step detail? Well, good news. Duration now offers a trim board that measures just under an inch, 15/16 to be exact, and a full 18-inch width by 16-foot length. Super stable and able to be painted any color, Duration's new extra wide trim board is a great solution for deep fascias and rakes, even sign material. To learn more about Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com and be sure to check them out on IG.
Brad, are you in a basement?
No,
Or just a dark
I'm
room?
in this dark studio and the black backdrop. So,
yeah.
What is the black backdrop?
I'm in a cave right now.
it does appear that.
What time is it? What time is it over there? It's dark.
It's sunny and 105. So,
woo!
Oh,
it's a dry heat, though, right?
It's a dry
heat. They say?
Yeah.
It is disgusting here right now.
Yeah.
And it keeps raining, and you think it's going to lighten up, and then it doesn't.
I was in Dallas. I felt like it was worse in Dallas than Phoenix. Like, so freaking humid. But
yeah, you've probably been away more than you've been home.
I have. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that legit?
Yeah. Like honestly, since probably Memorial Day, I've been gone more than home for sure. Since May.
All right, let's dig into that.
Okay, let's go.
That.
How? I mean, like,
what?
I guess, like,
why?
Well, let's start with how.
Where? Let's start with where.
Tyler, you're too loud.
Oh, come on. How about now? Better?
That's good.
Hello.
I think that's good.
Okay. Where?
So where? Let's see. We've been in Alaska, Newport Beach. We went to the Parade of Homes in Utah. Been in Dallas. Heading back to Park City. I'll be in Atlanta, and then Sioux Falls, Seattle, and Aspen. Just for a lot of different reasons. I mean, some of them are family vacations. Some of them are.
Is
BD.
this isn't the farewell tour though?
No.
There's going to be another one. All right.
No farewell tour, but it's a little
coming to a city near you soon.
Well, I think what's important, and maybe we'll dive into this. I mean, this is part of us as contractors. We're all trying to figure out our direction, right? What we do, and I feel like it's taken us a long time to do that. And I know we had some text, Johnny, Nick, and I, trying to say, okay, well, you're trying to figure out your company. There is this growing pain that you hit in year 3, 4, 5. And where I wanted to hang it up, you know, I'm like, are we just pounding the pavement for no reason? Are we figuring this out? And we had some challenges with hires. We had some challenges with people. But my issue is that I worked for a company out of college, and in the recession, 2006 was a freaking nightmare. I mean, it was busy in '06, then '08 hit. All of us know that. We lived through that. And the company I worked for was a paper contractor. They had nothing, no brick and mortar behind them, no assets, jobs end and you're done. And so when I started AFT, it's like, okay, all of you know us because of AFT. That's what I promote on Instagram. But that's one of 11 LLCs we're running, right? And most of our LLCs have nothing to do with construction, from manufacturing to products to energy drinks to other things. And that's part of my travel. I mean, that's part of the networking that we're building, as well as our real estate division, right? We own our building. We have 4 tenants that lease from us. So it's an operation that's much bigger than construction, but it gives us the backbone or the brick and mortar to be strong as a company and then have the right people on board.
So break down those.
I'm just still stuck on energy drink right now. Sorry.
I always think of money laundering. Like this is Ozark.
Yeah.
Like he's got a lot of LLCs and just moving money around.
But how did that come?
So where did it start?
Yeah, I think that's the easiest way. So
Cartel. That's how it started in the show.
I was in some trouble.
Everything goes back to the cartel, right? At some point, but really, this kind of aligns with the reason I do the podcast too, which we could get into because it's totally different than what you guys are doing, right? But the reality is, you meet interesting people, right? When you do high-end construction, I work for a builder. We did this $300 million hotel. You meet some very business savvy investors, you meet architects, banks, right, on an international level. Those connections become really important, down the road. There was an investor I met. This is the recession. He came down. He acquired a ton of real estate. He was going straight to the bank, purchasing the bank notes, right? So these weren't short sales, foreclosures on the market that bidding. He's going with his relationships with the bank. He's buying the notes direct. So he and I made a connection. He's like, and this guy, I mean, he owned a massive food ingredient company in Wisconsin. He was working with NASA on some technology. So I was in the process of going back to get my MBA. This is 2011. I took the GMAT, got accepted to grad school. I was ready to go. And Dave called me, my client, who's my business partner, said, Brad, hold the phone. Like, let's do something now. And we partnered up. We started a real estate division first. Then I got my license, started AFT. And since then, Dave's an entrepreneur, right? He's in his 60s. He's created wealth. He invests in people. He's been a huge mentor for me because I have this amazing partner that just loves to explore opportunities. So that's really the basis of where this started. And now it's splintered into just a lot of different people we've met, connections, and here we are now.
And this was when you were working for someone else. You met him?
Yeah. So I was working for a GC by the name of Roland Companies, and they did, high-end commercial, hospitals, churches, high-end custom homes as well. And so after working for them, for 6 years, met Dave, we partnered up, and then here we are. And we partnered up in 2011. So it's been about 10 years. And AFT officially has been 8 years, 8.5.
So what was your relation? I mean, how did that relationship kind of form from having, meeting him initially to, hey, let's start a company or let's invest together?
That's a great question, Tyler. So Dave came down. He purchased, there was actually Johnny came through this when Johnny came to see me, those brownstones in downtown Phoenix. There are those 5-story brownstones, just like you'd see in Boston, New Jersey, right? All brick. And the project was started and it was halfway complete, sat vacant for 3 years. So they had pumped in 20 million, sat there vacant. He comes and purchased the note. He sent it out for bid for 3 GCs. And he went to the interior designer. And this is why, Johnny, I mean, we could talk about this later, the value of interior designers and those relationships with designers and architects, because he went to the designer that he knew that designed his house in Scottsdale, his vacation home, and said, I need 3 builders. They recommended 3 builders. And myself and Spencer, who works for me now, we were there 24/7. I mean, this is a recession. We had to win this job. And so we were there and he just saw our determination. So he hired us. And then after that hire, working for him for a year, 2010 to 11, we built a friendship. He knew I was going back to get my MBA. And he said, Brad, I believe in you. I believe in what you're doing and like personality and whatever competitiveness. Let's start, let's figure this out. Let's start. And it was just a quick acceleration to MBA without going to grad school, if you will.
Do you think if you had not met him, like what would your business look like today?
I wouldn't be in construction. I mean,
You wouldn't be
honestly,
concerned.
it's that
Yeah.
simple. Like, and I love construction. I mean, it's real simple. I grew up as an electrician. My dad and uncles are blue collar electricians. I grew up in San Diego. I've talked about that. I actually went to school, as you guys know, I did construction management at BYU. That was my career path. And I was going to leave and get into finance. Like, it was just a tough market. I had some peers doing finance for GE Capital, and I was actually going to go work for GE Capital in healthcare. And if it wasn't for Dave, we wouldn't be here discussing this today. And honestly, I wouldn't change that. I love construction now. Not that I didn't before, but it's different, right? Because construction today, I feel like social media has allowed us to connect, right? It's allowed the industry to make changes that we desperately need, especially with clients and communication.
So did he come to you for kind of, for lack of a better term, sweat equity at that point, or what were you bringing to the
Yeah, what was
table?
the deal?
Was it more?
It was all sweat equity,
Um,
100%.
okay.
No cash from my side. I mean, think I'm young married guy, young kids, going back to grad school, the recession. I didn't have any money, but it was a program in place where I could get to 50%, and it was all sweat equity over the years, and that's been the case. And really, he was living at the time full time in Wisconsin, and so just outside of Milwaukee, and he needed someone to run the real estate division at the time. And I had that crossover. I had some real estate experience, and between that and construction, I was able to oversee some of the projects we had until I started, AFT.
So
Were you able to draw a salary from
I was
that?
gonna say, were you an employee?
Yeah,
Were
so
you able to draw a salary from that?
I was, yeah. So he, the normal things. He got me a truck, a cell phone. I had vacation time. He paid me 1099, and it was just me. It was just me and Dave, and that's how it started. And then, we've since grown many different entities, but that's where the partnership started. And is for me, I think it's really important for all of us, right? That we have mentors, you have people that have built businesses that you can rely on and speak to, right? Because that's helped me look around corners and figure things out at this quick, accelerated education, trying to run a business.
You talk about mentors a lot, even offline, Brad, and I think that you hear that word a lot more, especially through social media, where it's like everyone wants a coach, everyone wants a mentor. I've worked with a couple. I have a business coach now, but what you talk about it uncovering opportunities or making you look around the corner, but specifically thinking about he has not been your only mentor, but with him specifically, was that what truly led to these 10 other LLCs that you've decided to explore?
It is. I mean, and let's break that down. I mean, before I get into
Okay.
the Dave relationship, Nick, I mean, spoken to you about like the Builder 20, right? And so, specifically in regard to construction, the Builder 20 is a group of 20 builders, right? And that mentorship has been huge because now here I am with 19 other builders that make you accountable, that say, "Hey, Brad, you're not charging enough. Like, you your financials are messed up because I'm sharing everything with them. You need to be charging this monthly fee for your supervision. You need to be charging this cost plus percentage." And they give you the confidence to be direct with your clients and set expectations because these are guys that have been doing it for 30 years. And I hadn't been, not as a business owner, at least. So having this quick education, understanding that that's a mentorship that's super valuable. No different than any of us meeting offline and having these conversations through social media saying, "Nick, what are you charging? Why aren't you charging enough?" Right? What's your
Mhm.
cost plus? How are you doing your monthly fees? Are you stacking your GCs too to cover all the incidentals? Right? How are you building in warranty reserve? These are things that we should be looking at and having these conversations because my biggest issue is that as a contractor community, none of us charge for estimates. Why not? Why aren't we charging? And we should be, but until you have the confidence to do so, or I know Johnny talks about this on the podcast, but until you have the confidence to go to a client and say, you have to have an architect, you have to have a designer, and you have to have a landscape architect, I'm not working with you. And if you know what you like and you think you can make these decisions and you're not going to hire an interior designer, then my fee goes up 100 grand. Right. But it takes a process to understand the why, the penalties you've paid, how much money you've lost by not doing it the right way leading up to that point.
But I think sometimes we find that that's the value we bring. Like someone asked me,
But what do you mean? What value? Like, what value are you bringing, Johnny?
So you're saying that you're in for what, 7-8 years right now?
Yeah,
10
eight,
years
eight
in
and a half,
AFT?
8.5 at AFT.
Well, let's say 3 years in, you're still questioning the value you bring to the table as
Totally.
a GC. So I think someone asked me the other day, they called me about a basement and like, can you do a basement? And I was like, I thought about it on the phone with them. And I'm like, I don't want to be snotty, but at the same time, it's like, it would be harder for me to do that basement remodel. And because I go, you're calling me to do a basement. You should be calling a designer because you're not ready to price this out yet. So I find myself on the phone with someone who just cold called me. And I'm like, but I think about it after the fact and go, 10 years ago, I would have been like, I got this. I'll sketch the design. I'll bang this out. That was my value proposition, that I can not only build it, but I can also design it with them. But it takes like almost like 3-4 years to get out of that, meaning I should be using my time better and more effectively managing the product or my employees, not
Or
drawing it.
or your customers should be paying for that.
Agreed. Yeah.
But Johnny, you're spot on, and that's the problem. People look at social media and they think this is an accelerated education, right? And there are some things we can do to accelerate that with connections we make. But the reality is, think this has been a life process, right? I'm 40 years old now, so I worked for someone else. I worked in the trades. I went to construction management. This is a process, and really, as a company, it wasn't until 5.5 years in, 3 years ago, that now every project I do is negotiated. Every project has a designer architect because, in year 3, I'm taking a bathroom. I'm taking a small kitchen. I'm trying to figure it out. And when the client says, I don't want a designer, okay, that's fine. I want the job. I'm going to do whatever it takes. But until you build that credibility, there's no doubt, but it takes time.
But it also takes the network.
It does.
Like when people ask me, like, what, they don't ask me, but they're like, the value. I'm like, I had like a 6-hour long or 7-hour long interview with a client. And I'm like, you're trying to find the right people that have your best interest in play. No matter what happens, that I know you've spent $100,000 on an architect, and are you spending whatever it is on an interior designer, but they still need to know that you have the architect's back, you have the designer's back, but at the same moment on a Friday at 6:00, having a beer, walking through the project, you can still advocate for them. Like, what I'm saying? Like, I've had clients where we've done, I bring up this pool that we did, where we did the underground sport court, and we designed a pool while we were doing that court. Okay. And it was all on paper, blah, blah. This is really before renderings and all that. I know Nick's going to go renderings. And we did all that. And then we backfill the court. Okay. And then we stake out the pool. And I'm sure we've heard it on the podcast. And we stake it out, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, dude, this pool is like a resort. Like, you're at the Hilton and it's in someone's backyard. So I call the client. I go, you want to hit the job site and just walk it? So we're walking it, and I go, you sure about the size of this thing? Like, get me. That's the moment I'm talking about right there. That I know it's been drawn. I know everyone's done their part, but are you sure this is the right size and what you want to live with? And those are those moments that you're advocating for the client, that if we need to, adjust this or manipulate it, this is the time to do it. And he's like, Johnny, it is too big. You're absolutely right. Thanks for bringing it to my attention, but it's going to cost me $30,000 to redesign it to make smaller. So let's just leave it the way it is. But it's that moment is when that trust is built.
But Johnny, and you're on spot, because the biggest problem we get into as contractors is when the clients don't feel that we're advocates for them, right? That whether all the mess we're all dealing with inflation and cost increases on material, or guys not showing up to jobs, or getting nickel and dime, employees, whatever, but
more money.
But you have to build that credibility. It's an emotional bank account, right? I have to put deposits in my emotional bank account with the client that I'm advocating for them, and I'm here to protect them. That's why they're hiring me as a credible GC, right? I'm protecting them from everything else that's going to come up, or give them advice, as you mentioned, that's something that's going to be value engineered or better designed. And as you make those deposits, it's a lot easier when you need those withdrawals at another point, but you have to be an advocate.
But you also, like, when I said to the client, I kept going, I was like, you're hiring me because at the last 10 years, I've created this kind of Rolodex of artisans that we can kind of do whatever it is that you want. And that goes to, like, when they called me, they're like, we're thinking about using this architect. And I was like, all right, here's the architect I like. And I go, who are you thinking for landscape? Who are you thinking for interiors? Because, like, the team, we have to know who's going to be involved right away. Dude, 5-6 years ago, those were not the questions I was asking on the phone call. It wasn't happening. I wasn't throwing people out. I didn't have a deep enough Rolodex on, like, asking the right questions, like, what kind of landscape we thinking style wise, and they throw out a couple ideas, like, all right, you need to talk to this guy, you need to talk to Sean Papich, and then they call him, and then it almost, like, I don't have this job, but, like, the fact that they interviewed with Papich today at 1:00, I'm like, whoa, they're putting my team together. Like, there's a good chance this is rolling my way. But that's the asset I'm bringing now, is having 5-6 years ago, I had great subs. They didn't expand far enough to be interior designers, architects, and all that. And it's because I didn't steamroll anybody, meaning I wasn't 100% obviously behind the client. I had to advocate for the design as well when it was needed. But having those people, like I tell Benny and even my guys now and girls, is that, hey, when we walk into a project, obviously you're making the client happy, but I want to walk out of there tenfold. I want the designer, if they're not part of our Rolodex. I want the architect. I want the landscape architect. I want to walk out of there with 5 more relationships that can then prosper in the next 5 years. That's where
But
it becomes key.
so that comes from experience and your time kind of devoted to what you're doing, but there's also the kind of aspect of it that you have put yourself in a different market as well, right? So like the longer that you're in, if you're looking to kind of move forward, you're now afforded the luxury of being able to bring in all of these specialists on design as well, because there's a lot of people out there where, like you said, John, they're basically bringing that value to the table by handling that themselves, whether it's good design or not. That's how they're able to do it. But with experience and getting better and developing that network, you're also hopefully working into a market that now you can bring in these specialists and the customers can afford that.
Tyler, well, yeah, there's a couple points to that though, what you just mentioned, Tyler, which you're spot on, is that you have to walk before you can run, in the sense that, and Nick's spoken about this, that when he was marketing, pictures of projects, he was getting calls for those, but that's not what he wanted to be doing, right? And he and I spoke about this, that the decisions we're making today are going to affect our company in 5 to 10 years from now. And so you
Right.
have to think about that, from systems, from hiring, from training, how we empower those that are hiring for us, that are working for us, and that they can go out and run this stuff, and we're teaching them to communicate. But more importantly, that marketing side, right? I knew that at some point, hopefully sooner than later, that I was going to be doing these homes that I'm doing now. And it's like that vision board. I knew I'd get there, but I had to step there first. I had to do the remodel, but I always made sure the way I was marketing online, social media or website, was showing where I was going to be, because I had the experience working for the other GC. I just didn't have that under the AFT umbrella, right? Individually. And now we're doing that. So now I can build on that. And now, as Tyler mentioned, you get to that market where you can dictate the terms, you could dictate the team that's going to run the project. And Steve Basic spoke about this too. He's like, look, people say, well, Brad, you're in Scottsdale. And there's truth to that, right? I am in Scottsdale, fortunate to be in a good market where there's luxury design. But look throughout the country, people own Teslas in areas of the country that aren't high income. People have nice houses in part of the country. There is a demand. And as you can sell people, hey, if you hire a designer, first, I'm going to build your house faster. I can give you some database history. I'm going to build more cost effectively, right? Your house is going to be nicer. It's going to resell for more. You're going to be more inspired when you come home. When you're locked at home for COVID, you're going to be inspired, and you're going to be like, I love where I'm at. I'm not depressed. I mean, there's so many value adds, but you have to help the customer understand that and sell them, as you're building up to the level you want to be at.
Even marketing yourself, and having, it's where you want to be, right? So if it's 5 years down the road, you may not be able to pull those designers out that you really want to be working with, that have a higher price point, or a more of a premium designer. But if you are marketing yourself to be there in 5 years, and you start developing those networks and those relationships at that point, when you're ready to be there, you're not now looking to integrate systems and people into your business that you've never used before.
Yeah, and Tyler, to that point, it's interesting when this is where all of you should be utilizing social media, however you want to go after your business. Instagram's great. We could talk about that. TikTok, but LinkedIn, I know you guys hear me talk about this all the time, because this is the value of LinkedIn, is it's organic, right? If Nick likes my photo on LinkedIn, his whole network sees it. So for me, when I started my company, I'm calling architects, designers. I'm this young kid starting AFT. They never return an email. They wouldn't return a phone call. Two of the top firms in Phoenix that I wanted to work with would never, I'd see them at networking events. They'd barely acknowledge me, would never respond. So, okay, that's fine. Send you a connection on LinkedIn. We connect, and I'm just going to post content. I'm going to talk about site cleanliness. I'm going to talk about quality, whatever. And it's non-soliciting, right? And then after a while, they see that momentum. They see that happening. And both these architects call me and say, hey, Brad, let's meet for dinner. You need to help me with my social media. You need to help me with LinkedIn. You need to help me with Instagram. And that's the connection, right? Now, all of a sudden, as of today, I have projects with these architects that I couldn't even get to answer my phone, but LinkedIn and social media was a connection around that. I could still have my messaging. I could still have my marketing where I knew I'd be, even though I wasn't there yet. And as I start to build that credibility and get that job and get that project, well, now I have their attention, right? And I've given them value for them to reciprocate that back.
I want to know, which is slightly off topic, but if you're owning multiple companies at this point, and you basically elected for construction to be the brick and mortar, after owning multiple companies and kind of see how different operations are, is how do you feel the construct like owning a construction company? Because everyone always says don't get into construction, it's going to stress you out, you can't really make money and everything else. um, how do you feel construction kind of stacks up against the other entities that you were involved with?
It's just different, right? I mean, it's a really good question too, Tyler, because as you're thinking about that, let's think about manufacturing, right? It's product in, product out, and you can monopolize that, you can monetize that a lot quicker, right? The tough thing about construction is it's a fee industry, essentially. I mean, you could go lump sum, but then when you have COVID hit and inflation, it's going to put you in a bad spot. So cost plus, right? You have your fee, and it can be a good fee. You can make good money. I know subcontractors can charge differently, and that's why in our market you'll have people that are mechanical that say, "I don't want to do new home. I just want to do service." Right? They can make more on when people's AC goes out in the summer. So those business models are just different. When you start thinking about real estate, yeah, you can make a lot more money in real estate. Commercial development, if you go buy a shopping center at 40% occupancy, and then you get tenants, you get a Chase Bank and a Subway, and you get that leased out, and you do a facelift, and then you sell that to a national REIT, right? That's going to capitalize your money a lot quicker. But you have to have capital, right? You have to have either a network of real estate
I
investors.
feel like you need time before you need capital.
Well,
Like
you need.
someone could give me $10 million tomorrow. I would have to figure out where I'm going to carve out time to invest it into that capital. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's and John, that's what I want to touch on too. It's like you going back, and Tyler, you brought it back nicely, is the other companies. And I know you're asking specifically how it's different, running a manufacturing company to a building company, but it's the same thing. It's like I feel this year in particular, I've started to diversify what I'm doing and finding other ways to pull additional income beyond just the building
And male modeling.
and male modeling. It just hasn't really picked up, so I'm not making a ton of money at it. But
Give it
Switching the
time.
feet.
Give it time.
Switching the feet.
I haven't done the feet thing. But
You're definitely not doing hands.
listen, I have one bad
Just
hand.
crooked,
Those
crooked
weird
finger.
fingers, man, are just.
Crooked finger.
Oh, you know what? I'm out of here, guys.
I don't even think my top joint does what his does. Like,
Mine doesn't move.
All right, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm being picked on.
no, we were just having fun.
I know, and I forget what. No, but to John's point, it's like when you start spreading your focus across all of these different avenues, and I think you rattled off all what those 11 LCs were, and I didn't catch all of them, but specifically, like you're
It was
talking
on
about
purpose.
the shopping center. It's like I think about what my day to day looks like, and for me to have other things going on, even including this podcast, right? It's like I have to structure my day around that. And I think about like, and I know people do it, and I know that you're in outside looking in, Brad, you're doing a really good job at it, because you're also you seem to be balancing the family time really well and making it that a priority. And probably I could make the assumption that you've made it such a priority that it probably hinders you on the professional side sometimes.
Mhm.
But you have realized that there's more important things in life. So I guess my point is I guess I'm asking exactly what John is asking, is like, how do you break that down and kind of diversify your attention?
Okay, and that's a good question. And so the simplest way to break that down is understanding, okay, how do these businesses flow together? So the shopping center is a great example. And I say this because we do have a lot of experience owning shopping centers in town and other retail and commercial land and properties. That feeds into AFT, right? We own the property. We have that big commercial development you saw ground up, horizontal and vertical construction. And so now this is a lifeline for AFT that we can do the development side. We can hire AFT, which is a separate LLC. They do the construction. So it's easy business development, right? Those feed into each other. Now, as you start to think about the
Do you know
systems,
how ridiculous that sounds? You just made that sound like the easiest thing in the world.
It's
Like, I
extremely
should own a shopping mall, and it's easy, and it's gonna feed into vintage.
well.
See, like,
Are
I have a
you
buddy
high
whose
right now?
parents are really well off, and he owns a roast beef company, and they also
Oh,
make meatballs for Subways and stuff. But like, they make roast beef. They have their own brand of roast beef, and it's in the grocery stores. But like, he even goes to the grocery store to buy his own roast beef, and I'm like you could just get that and have a slicer at home, and but they still go to the grocery store and buy it. And this is like what Brad would
No,
do. He's like feeding his own roast beef company by going and buying it at a store.
no, I mean, it still has to be competitive, right? Numbers have to work, cap rates have to work. But what I'm saying is this is really the mentor side that we touched on early, right? So my father-in-law is a big commercial developer, right? And so there's been that instruction over the last 5 years, understanding cap rates, understanding investments and what to look at, and having relationships that he's worked with national chains, right? On a national level. And he has these connections where they know when McDonald's is looking for a corner, they're contacting him, right? Whole Foods. And so these connections, and this is life. Life is about connections. It's who you know and how you bring value to each other. And that's how, I don't want to say the inside track, but that's how you figure this stuff out. And by having a mentor that we could partner with and do some JV stuff, some joint venture, okay, well, we can work together and figure this out.
JV. Who like
So joint venture, right? But
yeah, just throwing out all these
just,
spin words.
well, I'm
like,
trying to give you like a national REIT, right? Real estate.
John's
trust.
like junior varsity.
yeah, like JV. Like,
Well,
I'm just sitting there thinking, like, there's some days where I have a window order on my desk that I really want to dig into deeper, and I never get to do that, and I'm
but
worried
why
about
are you digging
order-
into that?
because I'm responsible for it.
But no,
And-
but we all are. And this is the thing. It's not like I run from it, but this goes back to the thing, right? What's my priority? So some people are in this business to make money, and they are. Some people are in the business to have a big house. For me, it's like I live in a simple house. I have a 2,800 square foot production home. Someday we'll build our house, but for now, my focus is my family and vacation and travel, and my company. And so I invest heavily. Like I pay my guys more, way more than industry standard, but that gives them responsibility too, that I make them accountable. So for the first time in the last year, I can go on vacation, and AFT we can run because these guys know what they're doing, and we've spent countless hours, and Nick and I spoke about this on the podcast. I had him on with me. I have a controller, and she is extremely educated, extremely bright, and she's gone through systematically and figured out where's the baton go. When that job lead comes to Brad, because I do our business development and pre-construction, where does it go down the line, and who touches it from coordinator to superintendent to estimators, right? And my project manager. And where's
So hold on. I want to touch on that because
Do it.
job lead comes in, and you just said that you handle business development and pre-construction. So business development is obviously fielding
Which
that
makes
call,
sense.
that email. Like, is this my client? Who's you do that process. When you say pre-construction, what does that entail? Like, what is your involvement, and where how far do you take that baton?
Great question, Nick. So pre-construction for us is typically a year, right? And that's how this breaks down. So you were to call me,
Has
Nick.
it always been a year? When did a year start for you? I mean, like 2 years
John-
ago, were you doing a year?
It was probably 8.
Sorry.
I mean,
I
no,
love you to
No,
death, and I want to know.
I love that you're just like, you're literally, I can tell you're on the edge of your seat.
No,
just
because I know where he is, and I want to be there. And I'm like, I got a call for a year, and I'm like, yeah, it's a year. But then there's other jobs, man, where I'm like, yeah, we're still designing stuff, and we're already submitted, and we're already doing demo. And I'm like, man, Brad's saying a year. Like when Brad just said that he doesn't live in a great house and it's modest, he said that like, I don't know, 6 months ago, maybe a year ago. And I almost sighed. I was like,
but what's your priority,
so
Johnny?
you tell me
Because-
there is a chance.
But the thing is, it's like I said, there's and I don't want to get into my personal financial situation, but the thing is, I'm investing in other things, right? We're busy with other things. The house will happen at some point, but for now, the reality is this: is that when you're looking at that pre-construction, yeah, on some of my projects, probably 2 years ago, would take 8 months. Now they'll take anywhere from 12 to 16 months just
So
pre-construction.
you were gauging it as the products grew, you figured out that pre-con needs to be more of a priority.
Yeah, 100%. And but here's the value. This is why I will not start. This comes down to SOP. Everyone should have their operating procedures, right? And they need to understand how to vet a customer. They need to understand what the ideal customer is. For me, my ideal customer, look, I do projects for clients that are first time. I prefer in my vision board, right, when I'm vetting a customer, that they've built houses before. It's a repeat customer. They understand the process. They're gonna have an architect. They're gonna have a designer. The age demographic. Like I have it dialed in our database to know exactly the right demographic of person, where they're going to be building, their what they can afford, the house they're going to build, and then they're going to make the list. And when they make the list, here's how it happens: we sit down, we create that budget. So I'm involved in that budget. So that call starts. Hey, Brad, we want to build a house. Say it's a modern house. It's going to be on a hillside. I'll look at the lot. Okay, I have a good idea from our project history. Let's just say this house is going to be $800 a square foot. Okay, now I can take that 800. I could break that down based on historical data pretty simply. Doesn't take me more than 30 minutes to break it down on what that budget is per line item. Now, once that's set, we get an architect hired, we get a designer hired, and a landscape architect. And now it takes 8 weeks roughly. It takes 8 weeks to figure out the floor plan.
Hold on. Can we back up real quick?
Sure.
So you get that call and they say they want to build. Okay. Like I have 2 of those right now in my email. And like, how does that first phone call go? Like what triggers are you looking for? I know you said demographic and all these other things that make sense to you, but like we have a client right now that one of my landscape architects hit me up and goes, "Hey, you're working with so-and-so, right?" And I'm like, "We're not working with him yet." And he's like, "I interviewed with that for the landscape architecture and I got a couple of red flags." And then we got in the call. My question to you is, you get the lead, then you jump it on the phone, correct?
So yeah, the
What
email,
are you looking for? What are you
DM.
looking for?
So for me, I'm asking this, Johnny. Okay, where's the lot, right? Have you built
Yeah.
before? What's your time frame? What's your expectation, right? I'm asking them as far as like as we're
Budget?
looking. Yeah, budget. I mean, budget is key. If they have a realistic budget, and then ask them how they found out about me. This is really key because a lot of the people say, Brad, I've been following you for 14 months, right?
Yeah.
I've been following you for a year and a half. Well, this to me is a green light because I already know I put out a ton of content on our systems. So I know if they're paying any attention, they know what we're doing and what I'm going to expect. So that's always a good thing, right? Because I know that they have a good idea. And then we talk about, well, I'm just open with them. Okay, for the project you want, you need this architect. This architect's going to be $18 a square foot. Okay, you're going to need this designer who's going to be $12 a square foot. Now, it doesn't mean you have to pick this specific designer, but I have 3 designers I could recommend that are going to be at $12 a foot. Is that right? $30 a square foot, 8,000 square feet. So you're going to be 240 grand in design. And if they don't blink, okay, we're on the right spot. At some point, we are going to have to sit down in person and make sure personalities align. And I tell them real simple, I don't care, Johnny, if you're building a $100,000 house, and I don't care if you're building a $10 million house. I want to work for good people. It's a really tough industry. It's a hard business. And we communicate well. We have a good team. We have good people that are happy, right? And we have good subcontractors that work for us. But we have to understand that there has to be this open communication. And it's as they're interviewing us, we need to be interviewing them.
So what are the red flags that come up and you think, hey, like midway through the phone call, this isn't a fit?
So ask them if they built before and if they fired their GC before. Ask them if they fired their lawyer or their architect, right? And so for me, it's really
Ask them if they have a lawyer.
yeah, if they have a lawyer on retainer.
Are you a lawyer? Okay, I'm out.
But ask them. I mean, it's fine. Like I mean, you have to qualify for this stuff if you're buying a house. Ask them, how are you financing the project? Are you paying cash? Are you planning on getting a construction loan? Well, if you want a construction loan, I could put you in contact with a few contacts of mine of banks we're pre-qualified with. But at least then I'm putting them with people that I align with that are going to protect me from a banking side. If it's a cash deal, okay, well, we need to open up an escrow account. We need to have 3-month draws in advance in this account that both you and I sign off on. And you can ask those things and be assertive with that because the more that the clients are like, yep, we're on point. Yeah, you're never going to have a perfect system where 8 months down the road, these expectations get lost and there could be some issues. And you always get 1 out of 10. But for the most part, when they align on these business models and practices and expectations, and when I sit there and say, Johnny, it's going to take us a year to get to permit, and then it's going to take 16 months for the build. You're going to be over, roughly 2.5 years to in your house. And if they don't blink and they're okay with the budget, I'm super transparent. They can audit me at the end. My controller is so automated with our cost plus. I don't care if I get audited. Like we're super honest with them and they understand that.
Do you think that you like, and I know that there's not a, this answer, both of these won't be independent of each other, but do you enjoy construction or business?
That's honestly, Tyler, I love construction. I really do. I know those listening may think otherwise with some of the ventures, but The thing about construction, and you asked this earlier, that's different from manufacturing or subcontracting or commercial development is in construction. Like today, I posted some stories. We're on our hillside build, 900-foot driveway, modern house, cantilever off the mountain. The clients have, 12 acres of private land. There is a satisfaction and enjoyment of seeing the challenge to dig into that hillside, to spend $1.5 million in hard dig and concrete and excavation just to get the pad ready. And it's exciting, right? To me, there's a satisfaction when I could go buy a commercial project and eat at the restaurant. Johnny and I went and ate at a brewery that we built, right? So to be able to go back and visit that, I mean, that's what gives me energy. And I love going back and visiting that. Now, running a business, I am addicted to business and entrepreneurship and learning about business and learning what makes business owners successful. And that part I do enjoy because the competitiveness in me, but there's, you don't get the same satisfaction or joy as construction.
Yeah, I think that, there's something that's palpable um when you're building something. Obviously, you're creating something from nothing, but it does seem that you obviously have a handle on the business end of things more so than most people who have a construction company, which is, I'm sure, extremely advantageous to you. And I often wonder, when people get into construction from a business perspective, or because it helps them on the business side of things, how that kind of translates. And it's good to have that background to come into it. But then I wonder, do you actually enjoy construction, or is that more of a means to an end
I
to
love it,
some
Tyler. I mean,
people?
honestly, we have a project right now that all three of you guys need to come visit when we're done. 30,000 square foot house, 13 bathrooms, lazy river, trampoline barn, tennis court,
That doesn't impress me.
water
I want to
tower.
come when it's like framed.
No, but come down when it's
Like,
framed. We had the
I
basement in. This is the lumber package was $1 million.
I want to come for the party.
But that's what I mean. When
no,
you
you don't.
Yeah, I do.
You're like the guy
Just
that
sit in the
shows up and
corner
then
and watch.
You're gonna
disappears.
sit
Just
in a
sit in the
lazy
corner
river.
and
That's it.
watch.
Just
Yeah,
float down the river.
just see me floating around.
Hey, Johnny's
I'm
done
gonna
a
hop in
polar
the
plunge
go-karts.
in
Who
a
is
pool
that
in the
weird
winter.
dude?
You guys can
Yeah.
do it in the summer for sure. But yes, I mean the thing is that that's exciting. And as Johnny's mentioned before, it's the chase, right? For me, I'm super competitive. I hate to lose jobs. Like I love when that call comes in. I love the chase, especially on a really, fun project that we have potentially, and to have them say, "Yeah, Brad, we're going to hire you. We're going to hire AFT." That there's this, there's nothing like it, right? There's nothing
So
like being awarded.
you're going through that pre-construction process. You're going through this historic data, getting them aligned. They qualify as a client at this point, and then at that point, you're the one that is dissecting the drawings, starting to work with the architects, and putting the initial pricing together.
Yeah, so we have a budget, right? As I mentioned, we go through a database, we set a budget. Really, that first 8 to 12 weeks of the
Mhm.
pre-construction agreement, we figure out the floor plan and we figure out the elevations. That has to be done.
But you're figuring out the floor plan and elevations alongside the architect in which you brought in, or they
The
brought in?
architect's doing that, and I'm just there with them, right?
And you're with them for constructability, feasibility, pricing exercises, like
Oh,
Everything.
do we sign them up? Did I miss it?
Yeah.
I
So
was doodling.
what we're
Do
saying
we
is
sign them up for something?
I
And
do.
how
So
much does it cost?
okay. So I sign them up for a pre-construction agreement, right? And depending on the cost of the project, it could be 25,000, it could be 50,000, it could be 75,000, and that covers the amount of time it's going to take me and my pre-construction team to
Mhm.
work through that pre-construction process. Now, because these projects are they are substantial, I credit that to the cost of the build when we break ground. So it's an
Right.
advance, a retainer, right? Whatever. And I'm happy to do that because, that's part of the deal. And
Yeah.
but once they sign that agreement, they do. Like we just had one yesterday. I signed the agreement. He wired the money. Now we're going to get the architect and designer on board. And here we go. So we're working together. We're having meetings with the client. Half of my clients are out of state, right? They have second homes in Scottsdale. So we're doing Zoom. But either way, we're sitting down as a team. And as they're designing, if I know the house needs to be a certain budget, and right away on floor plan, they're like, "Hey, Brad, we're going to do this walkout basin. We're going to have a bridge going out. We're going to have water feature." It's like, hold on, time out. That's not in the budget. So if you want to do this, this is a $150,000 upgrade. We need to add a line item. Oh no, we don't want that. So you do have to. That's the
Mhm.
value of having the GC from the very beginning. Is we can hold the hand of the
Right.
architect and designer to make sure we're not getting, you know, out of our bubble for the budget of the house. So
That's extremely important with architects and designers.
yeah, they don't price it. They don't know, and the clients have a vision. They want to They want their
They let us
Lamborghini.
be the bad guy.
Yeah, and it should never get to that point though. That's where we make the mistake, and that's where
But
the
I think
client.
that's why that's one of the biggest reasons to be involved in pre-construction is that you're not. I mean, you can continue to be the quote unquote bad guy, but you're in the room when they're like an architect mentioned in one of the meetings was like, we're gonna give you candy, but and Nick's gonna be the dentist that tells you have a cavity. But it's like, and I remember hearing that, and I was like, okay, I mean, why, if I'm in the room and right off the bat, I'm gonna tell you have a cavity. Like that's way better than you getting fed a whole bowl of candy and then getting to the dentist later on.
I would have been
After,
like, "Do I
after
get the dentist's salary?"
yeah, right.
But see, this is why it's
but that's
stupid, Nick. I mean, think
but
how
that's the
stupid.
point of being involved early on is that it's a triangle, right? It's the builder, architect, homeowner, and it has to be everyone. I forget who. I don't know if it was on your podcast, Brad, but it's like oftentimes the builder and the architect are on the bottom of the triangle, and they only work in the upwards direction, never across and work together. Where it's like with the pre-construction process, that is the whole point, is to resolve and be upfront about the fact that yeah, we can design whatever you want, but you're going to know right away that this is over budget, because no matter what, it's always over budget. And then it's just a matter of having a conversation of whether or not they want to spend the money, or we have to value engineer. And that's exactly the position we are in with the 3 projects that we have in pre-construction, where it's like we immediately said these are over budget. It's like, all right, which direction do you want us to go? We can either hit the brakes and like value engineer some of these things, or we can focus on finding out exactly what this thing costs and see if you want to extend to that number. And most of the time it's, let's see where this thing actually comes in, and then we can make minor cuts later on.
But this is why our industry is so backwards. And I said that we're stupid because what's stupid is when the client thinks, hey, I need to design my house, that who knows if it's in budget or not. I'm going to go with architect, maybe a designer, and then I'm going to send out to 3 bids, which is the stupidest thing ever because all 3 people are going to interpret it different. They have different subs, different quality. What they need to
Right.
be doing is they need to be go to Nick, Johnny, or Tyler. We're going to hire you, put the team together, right? Treat me fairly, treat me honestly, and build it right. And the thing is, the
Right.
pre-construction will go better, the build will go better. I've done it both ways, and every time it's successful when you put the team together and you don't break ground and put that shovel in until everything's decided. You can make changes all you want, but you have to have every decision done, and that's firm.
And
You also have to understand how to be a customer, how to be a consumer. I think that a lot of people, when it comes to getting work done on their homes or building a house, they don't understand how to be a consumer of that type of product. And I think that they're often untrusting. They don't understand the process. They're not patient. They don't understand that it's not black and white. You're not going from A to Z along a straight line. So I think that if people understood how to be a better customer, they would understand why getting 3 numbers isn't necessarily the best thing. Why you should be spending a lot of time doing your due diligence and going and looking at people's projects and meeting with people and seeing who their subs are and what their product looks like prior to hiring somebody, rather than just saying, hey, come look at my space, get me a number, and then we're going to pick based on where you fall in that number.
It's funny. Matt Reisinger and I did that podcast for Builder Trend, and his comment, Tyler, to that point is before he's now all negotiated, right? Like we all want to be, but at the time he was bidding and he bid a job and he won the job and he asked the client why, and they said, well, you were the middle number. And the only difference between him and the high number, the only difference was the cabinetry line, because he built kind of a more standard line and the higher bid had a more furniture line. And 4 months into the project, the client ended up hiring that same furniture company. So his number was the same. Like the thing is, there's so much variance there. And this is where we can use our channels and platforms to educate the public, educate each other. And then that team approach, that it has to be that way. I mean, there's no way you can be successful.
You should be hiring somebody who you like their product.
Yeah, exactly. And their personality.
It's the same thing as, if you really like how somebody does hair, like go to the person who does hair the way you like it. Don't go to somebody else and say, I want you to do my hair like this person. Like they have their own style. And it's the same thing with construction. Everyone has their own style. They have their own systems. They have their own sub pool. They have their own operations and how they run things, and you should find out why you like that person and why you want to hire them. And obviously it does come down to numbers, but if you're hiring somebody based on what they want, they'll give you what you can afford.
I'm listening to all this and I'm questioning everything I'm doing, and at the same
Isn't that the
time,
point of this podcast?
I know, and I love it. Like Nick, going back to being this, like none of us could really make this podcast earlier, and at the same time, I'm like, I also need this week, like
Right.
with everything I get going on. But Tyler, you asked a question to Brad about like what business does he like more, and I deal with a lot of business owners, and it's like they're super high net worth, and they'll be like, it drives me crazy, but they'll be on conference calls with like all their people, and he'll be on it, and it'll be like a video call. He'll be talking to me while doing stuff, and then jump on and be like, "Yeah, this sounds great," blah blah. And I'm like, imagine if I could run my business by paying attention a third of the time and then jump in with this stuff. I think, to Tyler, the next point was, I think people have to understand that you people are very impatient. And I think between architects, and they want to get drawing. That's how they make money. So they don't really, they don't vet out. Some great architects do, I should say, that they have a great team of people. And it's hard for us to get into that, short list of people that they work with. Hourihan has his top 5 people he builds with, and they're all different value. I don't think architects do a good enough job of finding a good network of different types of builders. Like right now, I have different designers for different size projects and different kind of attitude, but I don't think anyone is ready for how much time and effort goes into this project. Like Brad, you asked me earlier, why am I the guy doing the windows? And I want to be a boutique firm. Ben and I have been talking about this quite a bit, because right now anyone can build up to have a huge corporation where there's lots of numbers and lots of people doing stuff, and you can get lost in the mix. I want to be a boutique firm where I'm on the site every day, being creative, and I'll have a PM there, but they're running the day to day. When it comes time for me to buzz through and snap on those Tom Silver glasses, I want to be the creative one that's still happening. And so I do want to review the window order. I do want to kind of, it's like I'm dealing with a super high end architect right now, and there's someone that that coordinates the phone call, has me get on the phone call with them, but the signature architect that's on there is still there. You get me? And like, it's very important that they are there. So I guess I don't want to give up anything, Brad. And that's
you
probably
need
to a detriment.
And yeah, because part of the conversation, you're like, Johnny, you're like, I haven't taken a vacation. I haven't spent time with my family. I'm missing things. Yeah, I'm coaching hockey, but everyone has to understand their business protocol, what they want. And for me, it's not, I have 15 people, including myself. It's a 15-person operation. Everything
You're still super lean.
It is lean. And the thing is, my clients, I'm not on the job site every day, but I go visit the projects, on a regular basis. You see me on my stories, but my clients can get a hold of me anytime. I'm on vacation, I answer. And you guys text me, I'm responding right away. Like, I'm always available to my clients. That communication's key. But you have to understand, I have a buddy that, hey, he's like, look, Brad, he's a one-man band. He has 9 customs. He's by himself. He's killing himself. He's making a lot of money, but that's what he wants. For me, I want to build livelihoods, right? It's not just me. I have 14 employees that have a good livelihood, that work hard, are passionate, but I want them to be accountable to go through the window order, Johnny. I don't have to micromanage all that. And I don't feel like I have to be on the design side, even though I could. That's why I have a very high-end architect and designer. So I've chosen to do that, but that does free me up now to focus on the business. It allows me to focus on systems, right? To set protocol, which now makes us more efficient as a company. It makes the process better for our client. It allows me to look at a real estate deal or maybe another, venture, and to do that networking, do the podcast, whatever. And so these are all building that brand, but at the same time, pick what you want. For me, I want to take vacation. It's a priority to me. Work hard, play hard. I work really hard. I don't sleep a lot. Luckily, my mom's that way. I sleep 5 hours a night. I can function that way, and I get a lot done. But at the same time, I also have that downtime too, where I can play basketball and I can have time with my kids.
So hold on. How are you making those guys accountable for the window order?
It's real simple. They've been trained. So my top guy, he actually trained me. So Adam Cade.
Yeah, he's really good.
This guy is, he can read plans, and I have key people that are very expensive. I have 4 PMs essentially that operate as like a PM, and they're costly. But these are people that can go through Bluebeam, they can go through plans, they can check civil drawings, right? They can check window orders, they can check window depths. Like we have HOAs that say, okay, this side of the house, you have to have a 4-inch depth on the windowsill, this side 6-inch, this side 8-inch, right? Complicated, right? How are we flashing that? How are we doing all these little details? But their experience, we train them. Adam trains them. They're in the field. They're learning. Sometimes they make mistakes, Johnny, and it costs me money. We just had a superintendent that totally led the tile guy the wrong direction, and I mean 15 grand. But I understand that's,
But how are you making that person accountable?
oh, it's really simple. We sit in, and that comes in end of year because
Everything's simple. Danny, I just had a kid on the podcast that said right after everything, and it drove everyone
well,
crazy. So
hopefully you're not thinking I'm saying that. What,
no, don't tell me it's
Yeah.
simple. Tell me how hard it is, so
Well,
I feel better about myself.
people management is difficult. Client management is difficult, but you
Yeah.
bring them in, and this is how we do it. We meet every couple of weeks as a team. We have production meetings, and you have to be doing constant. I call them autopsies, right? And what this means is Nick is my super. He made a mistake in the tile, and he knows I'm going to say, Nick, you're coming up in the production meeting. This is a mistake you made, and we're going to train all 15 people on the mistake that you made. And they have to have thick skin. And you can ask him. In fact, Trevor, the guy who had this issue, he called me right after and he said, Brad, you can use me an example in the next production meeting. And the thing is, because
And you're like, no, I'm going to put you on the podcast
right now
instead.
on
I'm
Mass,
going to give you a shout out.
up.
On a podcast.
As you said his name, your face like lit up. Like you're like, oh, I'm definitely.
Wait a
calling him
minute.
up.
Trevor's a stud. He's like one of my best guys, so it's fine, and he knows this. But he's so aggressive, but at the same time, now he won't make that mistake again. And as we sit down in the year, that'll come into play, right, on profitability of the job, because every job has to be profitable, and they know the numbers of their job, they know their contingencies, they know their Home Depot expense account for that job, and that comes into play at end of year. So that's how, when I say easy, it's not easy, but it took 8 years to get to this point, right? To understand as we go through these examples and we miss on a site survey for the roof height elevation, and we're off because the truss guy decides to go rogue and make some changes, not tell anybody. Well, there's $30,000 cost that we have to eat. Well, now we know.
So
Hey,
for people to know, when you sell the frame for the frame, they also supply the materials. And the
they do. So
trusses.
Arizona is a weird
Just so
market.
people know.
We
When
don't.
I heard that story the first time, I was like, wait a minute, how's that happen? But it is
But
a whole different.
it is different in Arizona. And not only that, we even had the truss calcs sent to us. We go through the truss calcs, we analyze the truss calcs, we sign off on them. The engineer signs off. They go to production through the framing company. We hire a framer. They do the labor, the trusses, the hardware, everything. It's one lump sum. And that's just the Arizona market. It's like the weirdest market in the country. But they still went rogue and made changes even though we had signed off. And that just created delays. But where I'm getting at is that, yes, it takes time, Johnny. This isn't, I guess I want to make it seem that all of you should be spending 10 to 15% of your time on the business. Has to be on the business at least, probably more time, and understanding systems and who's responsible for what and how you make them accountable and how you educate the team. And by doing that, you get to a point, you really do, where it's still complicated. There's still mistakes that happen, but that train is moving.
So Trevor does it again. Take me through the process of Trevor doing it again.
Well,
So
this
you
is
get like
where
a dunk tank at the job, and then you
You
just
pull
dunk 'em?
fingernails out.
Yeah, like how
Fingernails one by one.
like I'm saying this not because I'm ragging on him.
no.
Is that like the only way I feel like we're gonna make people accountable is Ben and I are like, we're gonna do, profit sharing in the company. So that way you physically know each quarter, like where like that bundle of shingles that people now talk to me about. I interviewed someone the other day and like, what job was that bundle of shingles on? Was it here? I was like, no. But like, how do I, if you're not doing profit sharing and it happens again, and it's like talking to your dog about, not getting on the couch, how are you stopping that when it needs to have more discipline installed?
So this is where every company, even if you're 2 people or 15 or 100, you have to have some sort of HR backbone to your company, whether you're outsourcing that through like a major player or you're handling it in-house and you write them up, right? And even if you write someone up 3 times for 3 different offenses, it doesn't mean you're going to terminate them. It doesn't mean they have low standing in the company, right? These are buildable communicative processes, right? As you're giving them that feedback. But here's the key, Johnny, when you get into a predicament down the road and there is an issue and maybe a certain employee goes rogue on you and starts doing things they shouldn't be, or they're moonlighting or whatever, and you have that data information, then yes, you can, if you have to terminate their employment because constant mistakes or oversights or not showing up to work or whatever it may be, you have the HR covered because you've been documenting this for years, right? And also, when we do our yearly reviews, we have formal documents that they write their goals, we write their goals. We talk about the financial side. They sign it, I sign it, it goes in their folder. So you should always be doing this, no matter how big or small, and it will just protect you as a business owner.
So you're gonna tell me I should start 11 other companies, one of which being energy, and then spend 10% of my time on my business, write people up, and then have a
If you have
whole
you
HR
can't do
department.
11 because if you spend 10%, you have 11. You're already at 110%. That's
Yo, that's
impossible.
like just I'm trying to figure like just so I have notes for takeaway.
Hold
I
on.
love you to
Did I
death.
miss that you have an energy drink company? Did I miss you say
So
that?
we don't. We've invested in Killcliff. You've probably seen me talk about them. They're started by Navy
Oh,
SEALs. The Killcliff Energy Drink. They're based out of Atlanta.
CBD. I love that one.
Yeah, yeah. Joe Rogan has his flavor. Joe Rogan has the Flamin' Joe. Israel Adesanya, who's a style bender from UFC, that's out here. We did some stuff with him because he has his Kiwi coming out next month. But but that's different because that's an investment, right? So there's no Killcliff runs itself. I'm not doing anything there. Like I'm going to go out and visit with him, but I'm not doing anything operationally, right, Johnny? The commercial side isn't a huge. We're starting a commercial steel company, so that starts next month. But this
Of course you are.
yeah, but
why a commercial steel company?
because it's a great opportunity. And think, coming out of construction management, all my peers are pre-construction for McCarthy and Oakland and White's, right?
Mhm.
And all these national builders. And so again, but Johnny, this is what the core of what I'm trying to explain here, right? That you have to have the right people on board. You hire the right person that you can trust. If you have another Johnny that can now focus on the steel company, or you have another Johnny that can focus on the real estate side and that can run the pre-construction. So now I don't.
Let me ask you this, Brad.
Yeah.
And John just started a cabinet company. I started a cabinet company, because we felt it was a need. I think for similar reasons is that we can control it. We have more control over it. We can be more creative with it. Whatever. My question is, like, you're talking about a steel company, and is it about the business opportunity, or is it about the fact that, hey, I use a lot of steel in my projects and it's something I struggle with, as far as getting shop drawings on time or getting fabrication, or is it to solve a problem, or is it strictly a business op?
This is strictly a business op, right?
Is
Because
that how most of your decisions are made?
they are.
Like,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I use the example of the commercial because the reality is our commercial, probably only 20% of our commercial arm feeds
Mhm.
AFT. And it wasn't necessary. Like I don't need that commercial arm for AFT, but it's there. But that's
But I think
straight
it's
business
yeah,
opportunity
I think that's an important
distinction.
part of this conversation, right? Because that, like, I feel like a lot of times, people start other businesses, and not saying anything to John nor myself. We start other businesses based on the fact that we need to fix something within our own supply chain per
Solve or
se, right?
control.
And I
Yeah.
don't
Yes,
want that. I've
solve
told
an
you
issue,
guys,
right?
like, I know Nick, you and I spoke about this. I don't want a cabinet company. I don't want a subcontract that's
I feel like
self-performing in my parent company. I
no one
don't.
does.
It honestly, and I'm not like trying to bag on you guys, but for me,
No,
for
it's
my
fine.
goals, like, and where I'm at
Yeah,
as a company, like, it doesn't make sense to me. It's all
sure,
business opportunities, right?
right.
And the reason that you have separation of church and state, essentially, that they 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 can be self-sufficient. You have the right person on board that's running that
Mhm,
has skin in the game. So,
right.
like the steel company is going to have ownership, and he has to build this thing, right? But there's opportunities, and yeah, there may be some. Like I have a residential home with a $500,000 of steel that's going in. That yeah, he could self-perform. I don't have to have that. I could bid that out and just manage it and not worry about it. But
Right.
there's that opportunity. But it's strictly a business opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's, I think that's smart, especially from a business side. And for me, the cabinet shop probably wasn't so much about solving an issue. It was more about the fact that it was controlling something, and it was the ability to be more creative with the targets in my company, and being really millwork heavy and driven in the details, where it's like, if we were doing that in house, you know, it's like one of the things I genuinely enjoy about what I do is the fact that I get to go out in the shop and and fine tune the bits and pieces, and oftentimes overthink things. But
I feel like for you, Nick, I would describe it as a passion project. Like
yeah, it's
I
definitely
never
it's
thought of
passion driven.
NS Builders or Nick Schiffer without the cabinet element, the shop
Right.
element.
And I think a big part, like going back to something Brad said earlier, it's like a big part of my marketing became like it was so centered around that, subconsciously, where I was putting all the effort into marketing it, where it was like we were getting calls like, "Hey, we want to do an entryway built-in." It's like, dude, I'm trying to build houses.
I'm a fortune.
Well, yeah,
Like
that
it's
too, but
gonna gold plated.
it's like I realized that, like, from a marketing perspective, like I couldn't just keep marketing the fact that, hey, cabinets, millwork, we do this, we do that, we do kitchens. It's like I'm not trying to build kitchens. It's like, those are great opportunities for the millwork shop, but for NS builders, that's not what that 12, 24, 36 month goal is. It's about the bigger picture.
Yeah, and really going to that, Nick, I mean, you have to understand, and we spoke about this, your direction, right? How you're going to market yourself. And then a big thing is company culture too. John, you ask about that accountability. How does that work? But company culture plays a huge role. It's interesting. I had Jeremy Anderson with Traeger, who I know we were talking about Traeger as we led up to this podcast.
Just dropping.
No, but I just say it's funny. I just sent him a DM. He's like, "Yeah, come on, right?" But here's what's interesting. When I had him on mine, he's sitting here talking about company culture and how the issues it created for Traeger. And I had someone on my team that was a complete cancer to the team. I terminated him the next week. And I it was a tough decision. It's not like it just happened, but I knew for a year now I had to let this person go, that they're a big problem. And then it was kind of that's what it was, because really people need, when you think of company culture, and I feel we have a good one, like if you ask any of my employees, like they're passionate about the company and the brand and our team. And, we do a lot of activities together, and that's part of it, right? We go to lunch together. There's a true friendship there, but really employees need two things, right? They need one, they need to believe in the company they're working for, like direction, be challenged. And number two, they need to feel appreciated. And if they have both those things, if they like the company and they like the brand, or they like the homes you're building, Johnny or Nick, right? Then they're going to be passionate about that. And then if you take care of them and if you treat them right and you set clear expectations where they can be successful and they understand their role, then they're going to stick with you. I mean, we've been fortunate. We haven't had much turnover. Adam and Sue, who I hired day one, they've been with me 8.5 years, and they'll be here. Paul came on, as you guys know, a couple years ago and 2.5 years ago. And, these are people that believe in what we're doing, and they won't leave. And so it's easier for me to invest in them because I don't have turnover. I don't have to retrain. And now it's just, okay, let's keep building them to where they need to go. And that company culture plays a huge role just in as we refine ourselves as a company.
I think I struggle with. I want to have a great culture, and I want everyone to have like the camaraderie and build that team. Like I always center around sports, but at the same time, like when I kept asking about how do you create accountability, I guess I should have added every time accountability has been instilled where I've been an employee, that it's been fear based. That if you're going to keep track of how many times I fail, and failure is going to come with growth, how do you do it where, how do I want to put this? That as the company grows, employees need to grow with it. And if you realize that, you know, Nick, you had an employee that, was a PM and then moved them back to a superintendent. And I'm very close to the same thing, not because they're not talented and they're not, you know, a part of our team. It's the
Right.
fact that as we grow, it's not happening. The growth path isn't the same. And the culture part of it is really heavy on the owners, that you have to keep shaping it and have to keep revitalizing it and making sure that it's an utmost important thing. So I guess my question is like to me, the profit sharing is great for morale, that they're part of something bigger, but it also shows that how I can create accountability without a negative, like they're not, I lived in fear for like 3, 4 years that every time I screwed up or I wasn't, hitting the right target, that I was gone. And I hated that part of my job. Hated it. And I was like, I never want to put that in play with anybody.
So how much communication, when you think of that example, just you as the employee, Johnny, how much feedback did you get regularly, or edification, or just status of where you stood? How often did that happen?
I mean, I knew where I stood. It was the
Based on
problem
what?
was
Did
what do
they
you mean?
tell you? I mean, did they edify you? Did they say what things you're doing good and bad? I mean, how often was that dialogue and communication happening?
It was more I think what happened more was that, like, they were always looking for, like the only way they could keep me accountable was to find out what hadn't gotten done. Put on a ton of workload on me and then figure out, "Hey, did that get ordered? Did that get ordered?" So I was, working 24 hours a day to make sure that they couldn't find something that was wrong. But the I don't know what
And I guess,
I
and
guess
I'll
I
just
never questioned my position and what my role was. I was more questioning, was it enough every week? That make sense?
yeah, and I will say, Johnny, you're a little unique too because you're a little tough on yourself and you take a lot of pride. I know when you and I met for the first time, I mean, it seemed as you own the company and you were an employee, right? You take a lot of ownership, which is rare. But I'll say that when you're looking as a business owner with your team, the one thing that we don't have enough in this world is edification. We just don't. Like, so much is, Nick, did you get your stuff done? Tyler, did you get your stuff done? Right. And it's not, hey, you're doing a great job and here's why. Or you forecast and you saw this. Hey, Nick, you actually went through your specs and you went through all your tile, you marked it out and you found out that 4 of them had a long lead time. That's a great job. Right. And so they don't have the feedback. And so what I mean by that, this goes back to emotional bank account. The key for me as a business owner is I have Paul or Adam or Spencer on a regular basis that I'm pulling them aside saying, you guys did a great job. Like, you forecasted this. We had this issue come up. It didn't even get to my desk because you guys handle it, but I did hear about it. There's this constant emotional uplifting and edification on things they're doing, right? That are good, because there's a lot that they're doing good. That way, when the things are bad, don't confuse my kindness with weakness, right? It's time to drop the hammer that, hey, I told you, and I'm not going to call this person out, but he's supposed to have weekly meetings with his coordinator and he's not doing it. And I could pull him down, lay down the law, and he knows I'm serious because I'm a pretty nice guy. But when he knows I'm upset that he didn't do this, okay, he's going to correct that right away. And so that's the company culture side where they do feel appreciated because they get that edification, they get that camaraderie. And I don't want it to make it seem like this is Google, that we're sitting here in this like take nap
Yeah.
time and there's a gym and all stuff. This is hard work. And I told Paul when he was going to come on, I said, look, Paul, this is not what it seems on Instagram. Like, there are issues. There's clients that get upset. Like, this is a really hard business. And I know I say it's easy, Johnny. And I feel like in most cases we have our systems down. But I just had a client a couple months ago that said, Brad, I'm really disappointed in our house, right? I feel like you portray that you're building this, yet you let me down in communication. And it's tough to take that. But I know there's things we have to fix as a company too. But part of that's the employee too, their communication. And as I'm empowering them, they have to be doing their portion. But you have to have that constant edification. And then you have to find the times to drop the hammer and just so they understand how clear they need to be.
How do you distinguish, or is it person to person, between giving somebody positive feedback and patronizing someone? Because I feel like whenever I give somebody positive feedback, that I'm just patronizing. Because I guess I look at it, I'm looking at it how I would react myself. And when somebody tells me, hey, like, I really like what you do, or hey, you did a great job, like, I almost don't know how to take it. And I'm like, well, you're just saying that and patronizing me, versus when, you genuinely, for me, it's easier to tell somebody thank you and I appreciate what you're doing than like, hey, good job on this thing. And I don't know if that's just like a personal, that's how I would react, or what means more to me is somebody telling me thank you versus how good of a job I did.
Well, Tyler, it's funny you say that because I mean, there is some truth to this. You have to be genuine, right? You can't just fill people with stuff that's not valid. There has to be some backing. There has to be some truth to what you're saying, right? Because otherwise they're not going to take you seriously for what you're saying. And part of that too is understanding, okay, like your kids, right? And I know some of my employees are older than me, but and I don't mean it like my kids, but you understand that I have 6 kids. Each of my kids are going to take criticism differently. Each of them I'm going to discipline differently. And as employees are no different, I'm going to understand how to communicate with Tyler and Nick and Johnny. It's not going to be the same, and it shouldn't be the same. And so I have to understand. I have one employee that I come down on him. He's like Eeyore. He's like heads down. He's like super depressed. Thinks the world's falling down. And so I have to understand how to communicate with him. And part of this is just personality. Part of it's relationships. And as you become a manager, that's our job, right? We're managing people, we're managing clients that are incredibly difficult. and managing people, and that's what we do.
I even think about it is in regard to kids and, all the time you're telling your kids, well, you did a really great job doing this, or, my kids clear the table. I'm like, you did a great job clearing the table. And I'm like, do I really mean that they, like,
But within
I
there's
mean, yeah, thank you. Like I can get thank yous good. Like I appreciate your help. But I don't know. I
You're
have a
being
tough
overly
time where,
positive.
but even for you,
yeah,
Tyler,
like I just
yeah,
go
I
ahead.
was gonna say even with you, I mean, it's like with your kids, yeah, they're not gonna clean the table to the same level you will, but they're putting forth the effort, so there's a way to reward them with edification. But even you and I on Instagram, right? I'm not commenting on everything you do, but sometimes I'll be like, "Dang, Tyler, like you nailed this, this paint finish, and I told you that," and you're like, "Thanks." I mean, so it's not that I'm patronizing. I'm like, it's not a daily thing where I'm just feeding your ego, and so
Yeah.
everyone's going to communicate differently, and you just have to really understand the employee and that communication with each of them.
No, I agree with that. I think that oftentimes we do. I mean, like I said, I do it at home all the time where I'm just constantly feeding my kids with, positivity and trying to bring them up. And I'm like, I don't know, is this the best thing? Should I be a little harder? Should I, you know, kind of highlight when they're not doing something right so that we can change it? Or what's the best option there? And I think it's case by case, it's person by person. I also, I guess, personally, I don't love the feeling of patronizing somebody, or, we have two dogs and one dog's very needy. And it's just like, I don't know if I want a needy employee that I constantly have to be like, well, you did a really nice job doing that. Where I think to myself, we're all adults at this point. Um,
No one's saying that.
I think
I
that,
don't think I've ever said you've done a really nice job. It's just, but you have to understand. And Tyler, your business is different. You and I talked about this. But if you have employees, you do have to understand, right, what speaks to them.
yeah,
I
I think
mean,
it has to be different for each person.
it's funny. You always drive hard to get information, but I always try and make sure that there's whether it's subs or anybody. Like you ever go, hey, can I make sure I get someone tomorrow morning? And I always make sure that I spell out thank you instead of TY or whatever, and it's short. It's always going back and make I've it's one of the biggest things I do on a daily basis is when I'm chasing something down, like, hey, I need this arborist to get a tree letter. And it's been 3 days, and I'm like, hey, can you get me that letter? They get me the letter and then they email to me. Like today, I'm like, I got the letter. I submitted it because that was the important thing, because I get my inspection, blah, blah. I make sure then go back at the end of the day and go, hey, appreciate that letter, man. I know it took a minute. And that's the hardest thing to do because that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
That's where,
It
like,
doesn't
I know
happen.
yeah, and I want them to remember that. And then there's moments where I know I ride certain employees to get stuff done. But at the same time, when I know they've had a strong week and I'm driving home on a Friday at 8 o'clock and I'm like, dude, he had a solid week this week. I'll shoot him a text and go, hey, just want you to know that was one of the best weeks you've had as an employee. Just FYI, I want you to know that A, I saw it, and B, you should be proud of yourself. And so I do take moments like that. I just have a hard time where I find that the accountability stick always lands with us. And I get it, we're owners. But how do I get, like Brad, you said, like, I've always looked at it where the money is how I spend it needs to be logical. It needs to make sense, even though it's the employees or it's the companies. And I wish maybe I'm falling flat on my face like Tyler. Tyler doesn't have employees because the bar is so fucking high that no one's gonna do what he does. And no matter who comes along, the odds are very, very low. So same with me is that when it comes to not even close to Tyler, but same with me is that like I want the bar is super high that I know when I drive home that I'm like, it's just how they're not you. I say it to
Yeah,
myself
Yeah.
but
all the
let's be
time.
fair and understand scope too, right? Tyler's still performing. He's super knowledgeable in everything he does. He's doing this. He has the tools. He has the acumen, the knowledge. You and I are managers, right? I'm not out there framing a house, and so, but you can teach people to have the same passion as you, Johnny, and you can lay them out to do so. And really, you hear this thrown around all the time. The only constants change. We were just sitting in a meeting with my team, and they're like, "Hey, Brad." My pre-construction team was like, we are bidding a job that we presented yesterday. And they're like, we want to change the SOV, right? The schedule values, like move stuff. I'm like, go ahead. Like nothing's in concrete here. We want to do better. And when I hired Spencer, one of my PMs, a year and a half ago, And he's the one who said, "Hey, Brad, I've been doing heavy commercial for 8 years, right?" He and I were actually in college together. I've worked with them, brought him on, and he said, "We do pool plan meetings." And I've talked about this. And that's what he does. He shows up to the job site before they start. They sit there with all the subcontractors and the GC, and they do these pool plan meetings and they commit. Nick, okay, you're phase one. How much manpower? What's your duration going to be? Okay, Johnny, you're falling right behind. What's your time frame? Tyler, same thing. And so everyone's committing. They're getting each other's phone numbers. All the subs meet each other. They're committing. They have a master schedule that's not built by the GC, but it's built by the subs. And now it's dictated. And so we did that. He brought that in, and now that's a standard operating procedure for us on every project. And now we can get through these hillsides quicker. And the best thing is the subcontractor comes in and they're like, "Brad, this is amazing. Like, we can be more profitable now. We know that when our date comes, that it's real, you'll be ready for us, and we're accountable to these other guys." And this goes back to what Tyler said, and you, is that, letting the sub be more profitable, having clear expectations and laying it out, saying thank you, like you said, Johnny. These people aren't coming to bat. When I call them and say, "Hey, framer, I need your help with something," they're going to deliver because we've helped them as well, right? It's that give and take.
It's an easier job. I guess my question in that thing is that, yeah, I know you gave it a shot with your PM. How did you know, or how did you gauge that that was going to be something that was good? Like, in my head, I'm like, I would have just run everything and would have made it work the same way. Meaning, I would have made sure that the pool stuff that is coordinated, that behind the scenes, that you would have just come and done your job, and I would have made you accountable because the schedule we have, like anchoring certain days. So having that meeting, I just find that there's this. I'm not in the corporate world because I don't want all the meetings.
Johnny,
You know,
this isn't, look, I'm telling you right now, this is a
yeah.
2 to 3 hour meeting, and we do 3 of them, right? That happens 3 times. It happens pool plan from excavation to slab, slab to drywall, drywall to finish. But what you have to realize, this isn't a meeting for a meeting. We're doing, like, right now, this is incredibly complex hillside build, right? Where you have my mason's going to end up making 85 trips out to this project at 85 different stages, right? We have to do these in lifts and phases of each masonry. Then we have to put waterproof and we have to backfill, right? And so these trades, this isn't, "Hey, me and Johnny create the schedule, you guys figure it out," and superintendent make them accountable. There's processes that they figure out too, like, "Hey, this pool's retaining because it's hanging off a hillside and it's cantilevered out. I have to put this in, but because of my shotcrete lead time right now in this market where everyone's building a pool, here's where it's at, and we have to build the schedule." So you're getting everyone on the same
So
page.
how do you? So who holds? I know getting everyone on the same page. So how do you keep everyone? Who's accountable
So my
when it's all
supers,
set?
so
So I want to make sure that the super doesn't go, "Well, we had that meeting and so said he could make it happen." You get me how they can pawn it off by creating that meeting about everyone having contact with each other. You're creating a he said she said that could possibly happen. And in my mind, that's where the glitch is that when people are communicating not through me solely, vintage, through me, then the accountability gets broken up, meaning that they're talking to each other and they're going to try and make this happen. And if it doesn't, if I don't know, like you said, the trust thing. You get me? You guys did your checklist and then someone went off reservation. But if you're creating more of that direct contact between trade to trade, don't you feel like that you're creating that, you're opening that gap that could happen?
trades aren't communicating with each other on schedule, right? They have each other's cell phones, so if they need to coordinate something, they can, but it's all run through us at AFT. But where I'm getting at, Johnny, is we understand scheduling, right? We went to college for that. So you sit there and you build your critical path. You have durations, you have predecessors, successors, right, that follow each other. So we sit there and build this thing, and then we implement and build a trend. So I'm taking this 6-month hillside project with 85 different phases in here, and we're putting in with all the overlaps and to build a trend. And we live and die by that. That's being sent out every week to every sub that's involved in that aspect. And they know, "Hey, Johnny, we have you scheduled, 2 weeks from now for your masonry crew. I mean, make sure we have 4 masons out there doing masonry. End of this week, hey, Johnny, you're still going to be out there, right? Then next week, hey, just confirming we're ready for you. Make sure you're out there. And then the day of, what time are you getting out here today?" And that's what I expect from the supers. And they should be communicating so that these guys know, as busy as they are, "Hey, AFT's ready for me in 2 weeks," and they're texting me nonstop. I'm going to be ready. And it saves so much time, Johnny, because now I'm taking a couple months off my hillside bill because I'm not waiting. "Oh, we're done, Johnny. Can you come out and do the mason?" "Oh, my guys are they'll be out there in 4 days because they're on another job right now."
No, I totally get that. I guess I was just confused. I guess that's my biggest thing that I try to vet out is that I'm not creating, like, if a client hits the job site and then talks to the electrician, and then they add something, that
That'll
needs to
never
go through
happen.
us.
Yeah,
But
that'll never happen.
I'm putting it through. That's a client to sub. I'm saying when a sub to sub happens and we're not aware of it, we're still accountable for it. So I guess
That
I'm very, very
communication is not
wary.
happening. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it's not like the mason and waterproofing guy are talking to each other, making decisions. No,
Yeah.
everything's run through the super who's there. A
Okay.
client, same thing. They already know. We set the expectation. I do with them that, hey, any changes, talk to the super. Talk to me. I'm not like Patterson Andrew, who's like, if you talk to my super, you're fired. But because I just can't operate that way with but yeah, but the communication's there, and it's always going to run through AFT. It has to, because otherwise mistakes happen otherwise. But
Agreed.
going back to the pool plan, that mason comes out of that meeting. He's coordinated with our grader. He's coordinated with our waterproof, our pool guy, everyone that's involved, and the concrete guy. And he knows, here's my 85 trips. Here's the days that are happening between January and July 1st. So he can put that on his calendar. He can plan for it, and we just have to make sure everyone's ready. And that does expedite that hillside. That's, it's super key.
I'm gonna get there.
Hey, it takes 8 years, man. So it takes 8 years.
I think 8 years is still
Yeah, it's like
multiple
18 for
times. You're
most.
like, I know, like I feel like you're on an accelerated path regardless.
Well,
8 years isn't. I mean, it's you're obviously working behind the scenes to make things progress at the rate they are, because even at 8 years in, with experience, a lot of people aren't able to start figuring things out.
Well, and I think this is key, Tyler. And we talked about this. Our mentor, Nick, asked me about Dave, like his mentorship, right? So for me, it's I don't want to pigeonhole myself to network with people just in construction, right? I want to network with CEOs that run small businesses, 5 people in software, people that have in manufacturing, right? And understand, well, how are they operating? How are they managing? How are they dealing with bonuses? How are they dealing with salary, right? And it makes a huge key, but the builder 20 is key, right? I talked about that. Dave's key because he's like, hey, Brad, Dave has no involvement day to day. And he's the best business partner you could have, because he's like, Brad, you go build it. I'll support you. If you need me, I'm here. He does bring ventures. He's like, hey, Brad, we have this opportunity. Are you interested? But it's up to me to figure it out, right? I'm flying to Atlanta because John Brinkus, we're doing a venture with him. But Dave made those connections because he knows them. But he's like, oh, Brad, you got to go figure it out. And so he will give me the advice. Hey, you need to look at this. When you're looking at an employee, they're not an expense, they're an asset, right? And that changed my mentality at the very beginning when I'm hiring people, that my employees are assets, right? And so that payroll to me is not a concern, because that's an asset. I'm investing in them, and that's going to make me have the right people, because I'm not looking at it as an expense or like a payroll number I have to hit every week.
Nick's got a Nick. If payroll's an asset, Nick, I feel like you're set. Right?
It's probably pretty similar to Brad's at this point.
You're good. You can retire.
Is Dave still involved?
So
in AFT?
No, he has no involvement.
Do you have his number?
No. Dave
is he available?
Is he looking for another construction company to invest in?
Give him my cell.
Dave has never, like, he doesn't, I mean, he knows enough about construction, but he's never been involved. He's let me figure it out. And that's the thing too, which has been nice. And I've made a lot of mistakes. Trust me. I've made a lot of mistakes that have cost me.
What do you mean he's never been involved?
Day to day. He's never been involved in marketing, sales, anything.
No, but like, as like an investor, private partner, like something like that.
So he's involved when he gave me startup money for a percentage of the ownership. Yes. So
so he remains percentage owner.
He's a percentage owner because he gave me the financial runway, just like Shark Tank, right? You can have someone that's
Yep.
And so yes, in that aspect he is. Yeah. But I could call him anytime, right? That he's like, hey, Dave, I'm having this issue, or I'm having this employee challenge. How would you handle that?
I think the reason I asked that, do you think that, I asked the question, do you think you'd be in construction? You said no, but I guess that's where, and it goes back to who the networking, all of that. But I think that's where a lot of guys trip or get stuck, where it's like they don't have that financial backing, right? And I think
most people are going to trip when they find out that you should have money to start a construction company. Because I had, who the hell knew?
And it's,
You don't
Well,
need money to start a construction company.
Well,
I mean, that's what
cash is
I mean. I
king.
think that's
Okay, you
yeah.
guys had
But I
a
think
you guys had an
okay,
episode about this later, and I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole of
go down the rabbit hole.
financial investing. But comments are made. Well, I'm only going to buy some out of cash, and that's fine. But what you want to do is not spend the cash, right? You leverage that, and then you use that cash elsewhere. And
hold on. We talked about you having like a year's salary in the bank
We
for your
did.
entire company. You remember that? Because
Yeah.
then you DM me and I was like, and you were like, no, I have it, but I definitely use it and leverage it to
But
make
it's like a
other deals
bank,
happen.
right? Like
Yeah,
the bank
it's like
takes your
lines of
money
credit.
and
You
uses
should
it.
anyone should have banking, right? You should have banking. You should have lines of credit. You should have relationships with your bankers, right? That it should be personal relationships with your banker. So as you're setting up your company, if you don't have a financial investor and you're going banking, that's fine. And you get lines of credit. You build credibility as you're paying for things. And then if you're buying a piece of equipment, let's say you're buying a backhoe, whatever it is, if that's what you want to buy for your company, you may have the cash to pay for it up front, but don't do that. Leverage that, depreciate it, work with your whoever's doing your financials, right? Because you could depreciate that asset and keep that cash on hand. And whether you're buying real estate and leveraging that, or you have tenants in your building that now make your overhead low, there's different ways. And that's where anyone that's running a company in construction, and it doesn't matter size, you better have a good relationship with a good CFO, a good CPA, someone that's doing financials to help you look at this stuff because I'm not a financial guy. Like I've had to learn this stuff for the last 8 years, learning how to read financials in these different businesses, but that's been a long time coming, right? But having the right people in your corner, and that's where Dave is an asset. When I think of mentorship, he can read a balance sheet and a financial statement. He's instructed me how to look at that and how to leverage buying trucks and how to depreciate that, for tax incentives. So those things are always key. And when you're looking at stock ownership, if you have employees and you're doing a ESOP, and figuring that out and how that affects each employee. And we're not that way, just so we've looked at that. We're not going to do an employee stock ownership program, but these are things to be looking at because there could be tax incentives for you as a business owner to do that.
How old is Dave, you said?
He's 65.
What made you choose not to do an ESOP?
It's not for everyone. I mean, honestly, Nick, you think about it. Even for me as a business owner, I don't think I fully understood what I was doing when I got into business and started AFT, right? It's entrepreneur life. It's up and down. It's very stressful. It changes every 5 minutes of the day. It's a tough business. Construction is really tough in itself. And so when you are an ESOP or you have stock ownership or maybe you just buy in, right? And you own 10% of AFT, let's say, that changes your tax bracket. It changes your taxes because anyone knows our government, they are not blush about charging taxes, right? If you build spec homes and speculative tax here in Arizona, you're paying taxes even if you're not bringing home revenue. And that's where you have to understand individually, some employees just aren't prepared financially to say, hey, I have a $25,000 tax bill due because the company was profitable, even though we had no disbursements because we're saving the money like Johnny, right? You're saving it. You're saving the liquid assets for future, but you're still taxed on that as an individual. And that's where you get into trouble because they don't understand that aspect of it.
So okay.
So Johnny or Nick, like if you say your net income, you're making 400,000, right? You're paying taxes, right? If you don't have a way to disperse that. And so
No, I understand that, but I guess why, like, maybe I missed it, but why not share that with your employees, like the profits?
Well,
That's what we're getting at, right?
yeah,
A profit sharing.
And I think this goes back to just our program is that we incentivize them with a lot of benefits. And by benefits, it's
Right.
not just salary. They have amazing healthcare. I think our deductibles are like $1,000 max, right? Out of pocket. And they have like the Cadillac, the premium coverage. We work through an HR firm. But going back to the financial side, I take them golfing, right? These guys, they go out golfing. They have leisure time. There's other overhead. So for them, they make a good living. They get their bonus.
They get to hang out with Brad. Did you hear that? He just made a benefit out of his package that he gets to go hang out with Brad.
You know how much that costs?
Yeah. Johnny's killing me today. But
I am. I love it. Like I can't like.
But I think that's what I wanted to hear is that like there's other ways to incentivize employees.
He's patronizing you.
He is patronizing me. But no, but
you do a wonderful job at that, Brett.
But why not? Why not? If they can have a 4-week vacation and they can take it and we step
But
up as a team when they're covered, where are they going to get that? Where are you going to get 401k and health insurance as a contract?
agreed, and I think that's
And I don't have
there's
to give them ownership for that, right? Go ahead.
100%. And I think that's where, you know, we've had times in our company where we had a tough year at one point where we I always give mandatory vacation around July 4th. We have a week off, and then from Christmas to New Year's Day, week off, it's paid, and then they accrue a vacation on top of that. And at one year, it was tough. I had to make a tough decision of, financially, we either needed to work through one of those breaks, or we had to reduce or remove the Christmas bonus. And people valued the time off more than they did the financial bonus. And that's where, that's where I started really realizing that, all right, it's not really about the money. It's about the freedom to do other things. It's about the freedom of leisure time. And, you know, on, like, to speak even, more recently, like, I had interviewed someone, and we went through the interview process. And one of the things that came up later on, and not coming to work for us, but was having freedom within his work schedule. And that's something I've always believed in. It's like, listen, like, I don't give a shit if you work 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, 20 hours a week. If you get your job done and you're good at your job, it takes the time it takes. And that was something that we didn't discuss on the table right in the beginning. And I think, partially he regrets not talking about it early on, but it was it made me realize how important that is. And, like, you talk about it a lot, Brad, about, like, the actual culture. And I think that's where, people kind of ignore the fact that, what culture actually means beyond going on a golf trip with Brad or having beers in the office. It's not that. It's respecting and appreciating that, I think we said it on a previous podcast, like, we're human. We are human beings, and we're not designed to just work our ass off every single day and not have any time for ourselves or our family. And
And it's easily done.
it's
Like
very
you
easily
you
done.
can push so hard that it does fall off the radar. And
Right. And
if we're not going to do it as owners, like I don't do it, but there's no reason why I can't instill that with the employees we have.
I saw, like, a video today, and it was like, I, I'm not sure what it was for, but it was, it was a girl saying, "Can we do away with the 40-hour work week?" The 40-hour work week was designed by Henry Ford, and it was designed around manufacturing, and she went down this rabbit hole. But it's like, it's true. It's like, why I'm not saying that we don't have to work 40 hours, or we don't have to work 5 days a week, or we should only work 4 10s. It's, obviously we're basing building a home, or we're basing our projects on a baseline production level, right? Like, when there's something that needs to be done, it's based on a certain amount of hours, and you have to maximize that. But oftentimes you stretch, and your 40 hours becomes 50, and your 50 becomes 60, and then your 60 becomes 70. And next thing you know, you're working 7 days a week, 12-hour days, and you're absolutely destroying yourself.
And that's where it's to your point, Nick. Are you living to work, working to live? And you have to
Right.
understand that for the employees too. And I think it's key when you're thinking company culture. When some of my team says, "Hey, Brad, it's my kindergartner's first day of school," right? Yeah, go be there, right? Make sure if
Right.
there's a track meet, take off early, be there. And
Mhm.
when people have that ability to be there for their family or other priorities, they're going to put in more effort for you too as an owner. And then you think about everyone has to recharge, right? And Johnny, your point about being lean, that's the efficiencies, right? It's every week, every 6 months, every year, right? McCall and I, who's my controller, are looking at how can we be more efficient? How can we do this? How can we work with the right architects, the right designers that's going to make me more efficient? How can we do pool plan meetings? Because the more efficient we could be, well, that's going to allow the time. And I tell the team, hey, unless the house is flooding, you don't have to respond. 5 o'clock, turn your phone off. I respond to emails and I respond to calls because I'm the owner and that's my job. When I'm on vacation, I'm always on call. But you as an employee, go enjoy vacation, turn your phone off. I don't have that luxury, but at the same time, by giving them those, they have that leeway, they're going to be more motivated. And that's part of the company culture.
100%. I mean, I think I worked for a couple employees where if you had to bounce out to have that kid's recital, whatever it was, I remember I'd be there, but I'd be freaking out that my phone would go off. Be like, because I felt like every time an employer would sniff that out and be like, "Yo, where you at?" And I'd be like, "Well, I need an hour." So I tell all of our guys. We just had an interview the other day, and I'm like, just so you know, it's whatever you want to do. If you want to golf on Thursdays, golf on Thursdays. I
But
don't
get your
care.
job done. Yeah.
You know, use the team as you need it. If you need to
Right.
call me and say, "Hey, can I get some coverage on Thursday from 2 to whatever, to the end of the day," whatever it is, I'm totally cool with that. I'm cool with that over you just bailing
Yeah.
every week and then stuff gets left on the table and someone misses a client meeting or a client's there and it's not locked up. You have the team, use them. Like there's times where we're closing on a job. I know Brad, you do it where you have everyone walk it. And it's
Mhm.
like sometimes we all need to be there to close it out, and I need to be there till 9 o'clock at night. That's fine. It's what I want to punch in. And then just to go back a little bit, I mean, we had the kid Kirk. We've always talked about Kirk on this podcast with an old employee. And I remember Kirk used to be one of those guys that when you scolded him, you'd lose him for 3 days. He would just close up and be like, whatever. And Benny did that too. I told that one where Benny was like, "You want to do that? All right, I'm gonna work 7 to 3. I'm shut my phone off." He did that for a week, and it was awesome because it's like that's what you're paying me. That's what you're gonna get out of me. But Kirk was great. I remember my old boss was like, "Let's give him a C note." I'm like, "Bro, he doesn't care about money." I go, "He knows that we're gonna close out 3 builds this summer, and he knows his summer's toast. It's jacked." And so I said, the best way to do that one is I go, after we close out a project, I think we need to give him 3 long weekends in a row.
Mhm.
And dude, that was like solid gold bars to him. But I think it's not just, I think people listening to this will go, "I'm going to write this process and this is what we're going to do. We're going to be successful." No,
Oh, it's the
each
same
person
thing
comes
as
in. The kids thing.
yeah, each
Yeah.
no, and also everyone's different. What's
Yeah.
important to some people are not going to be important to other people. People who have more financial responsibility are obviously, the money may be more important to them other things, but like having employees, it's going to be different for everyone. And you have to be able to give them freedom. You have to be able to give them ownership so that they can show up and have self-worth and self-value. You obviously have to financially reward people because at the end of the day that's how they support themselves. It's not just one thing that's going to make people happy, and it's not just one thing that's going to make an entire team happy across the board.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Everyone's different.
Yeah, and let's not confuse this either. I know Johnny was saying, Brad, everything you're saying is easy, but the reality is, I mean, this is really hard work. Like, I remember coming out of college and doing construction, and one of the salespeople I was working for a production building, he's like, any monkey can do this, right? And it's not. I mean, this is a really hard business, and the mistake we make as contractors is we're not focusing on the business enough. We're just not, and it took me a long time to figure that out, and it will change your direction, whether it be 3 years from now or 5, but it's really hard work, and I know we portray our best image on social media as we all do, but behind the scenes, there's constant heartache and issues, right? Like
I mean,
go ahead.
especially doing stuff that's one off. A production
Yeah.
builder saying that is one thing, where you have a handful of things and it's a lot of the same over and over again. And yeah, you can really streamline that. And that's why they come into the price point and everything else. But when you're doing one off, it's never the same thing over and over, which I think leads back to me asking you how having a construction business stacks up to other businesses. And I'm thinking when you said that you're using the construction business as basically your assets and your brick and mortar. And the thought in my head was, isn't there another business that would be easier to
Yeah.
do that with than this? Like that's pretty much where my question was headed, but didn't necessarily want to come right out and say it. But like to me, a custom building company is going to be very difficult. There's as many processes as you want to put into place. There's so many subtleties and nuances that go into every single project that's different from the last, that a lot of the generalizations don't really they don't really take it's too tough to take everything into account. And I would imagine there'd be an easier business model than doing a custom construction.
Yeah, and let me clarify that, Tyler. So the brick and mortars are building, right? We own our building. It's in a great location, Scott. So we have tenants there. That's the backing, right? That's the financial backing of the company and us as the enterprise. The construction side is something that I do love. And as I mentioned, I mean, it's different than any of the other businesses because you're building something. And that's really the core of our team is working on that. So I have to feed them that pipeline, right? I have to constantly build AFT, and that's what we're doing. But these other ventures are just little ancillary things that help with the parent company, right? The overall everything we're doing, as we're building these different programs.
No, yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. And again, it comes back to business wise and being business savvy and smart and not putting all of your eggs in one basket and be able to diversify what you're doing. So that it's managing your risk at that point too.
Yep. Because that bubble's going to
I,
come, guys. I mean, it's going to come.
I think I'm not smart enough, and it takes way too much effort for me to do what I need to do on a daily basis to branch out. Because I have all the ambition in the world. I'm
Well,
going to build the right team.
But honestly,
It's just,
Johnny, it's what's your focus though? You mentioned this. Do you want to go through window checklists, or do you want to have a talented project manager do that, right? At some point, you have to figure out, do you want to be involved in that design? I know you say, hey, when I'm in that dining room and it's framed and I can see all the images, or do you want to hire a Fox Group or like a Jamie Rose here that already knows, like they know every detail, every piece of marble and trim that's going in, and I don't have to think. I just have to make sure it's done right. And so that's where you just have to understand what do you want? And then that's how you have to direct your business and lifestyle.
but it's funny, like it's kind of evolving because the job opportunities I'm getting now compared to 2 years ago, it makes me reevaluate the projection of the company and how someone may have been a perfect fit a year ago compared to what will be in 2 years when a product's finished. It seems like a constantly moving target. I know you've got like I don't one of the things I did want to touch upon this. We'll have you on again, but like Paul is a great example. Paul came from a completely different country, not country, state, and it was a different universe. He was doing hands-on stuff, and you're able to shape him in 2 short years into being a massive asset to your company. And that in itself isn't a story, but yet it should be something that's documented so people know how to do that. Because it's great for Paul because Paul, his body wouldn't be able to hold up. I'm not speaking for Paul, but
yeah, it's true.
From doing what he was doing, I say it to Tyler all the time. It's like, at some point you need to realize, and you haven't shied away. You said that like you're not doing roofs, I'll do certain things, but at some point your body's going to, deteriorate. And he actually made that move and he loves what he does. And it's because of the team that he went into. I just think it's very unique what he was able to do and be successful at it. And I think that's kudos to you as much as it is to him.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's not easy. And I set the expectation. As you mentioned, Paul was at a point in his life in his 50s with young kids. And he's like, I don't want to fall off a ladder on the ice while I'm doing, in the winter in Colorado. But the thing is, 4 years ago, I didn't have the systems in place to bring him on. It would have been a complete disaster. He would have lasted 6 months and it would have never worked, but that's why the system side, when Paul came in, 6 years in our operation, and here he is 2.5 years later, he's become a superstar. He's running 2 of my most challenging projects, and he's doing a great job because it's baptism by fire. I mean, he's had to drink out of a fire hose, but we've had the backing and support and education to walk him through and let him learn and figure it out. And then these pool plan meetings and everything else. And it's a lot. I mean, but then you have a resource like Paul, who's made this transition, and now he's learning so much about front end and construction itself that he can run this, right? He can run 2 projects, which now alleviates time for me. And he's a good communicator and he's big on social media. So he also has that draw to the company too.
Smart.
So when's JLC?
August.
Who knows? John does.
August 14th.
August 14th?
Yeah, it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I can only do Thursday. I'm picking up my boys from camp that Friday, Saturday.
So 13th. So you said 12th, 13th, 14th of August?
I think it's
I'm looking up right now. August 12th is
Yeah.
a Thursday.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is, a Thursday. I'm speaking on that day, doing a project management course.
Are you nervous yet?
Oh, always. I'm trying to get
Soon.
Benny.
Starting to kick the butterfly. You're starting to kick it
Oh, yeah.
now.
Whenever I think I'll be driving, I'll think about it. But honestly, it makes me feel better because I know the points I want to get across. It's like I only got an hour, but I know that hour can be super rich with knowledge if I can just time it out right, where it's not, 1,000 miles an hour like I had a Red Bull beforehand, but more of like, hey, hit all these points and here's a huge takeaway.
Well, I'm happy to join you guys any other time. My wife has a daddy or a mommy daughter date with one of our daughters, so it's probably about
Brett,
time
I
for me.
appreciate you, man.
Yeah, you guys are the best.
you're-
Thanks for all you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for hopping on. We know we bumped it around a bunch, which is somewhat.
No, don't
somewhat.
don't give away.
Playing
our
hard to
secret.
get, man.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I thought I was. I'm chiming into a Concom meeting, and I thought I was I thought I was unmuted. Something just popped up with my face. I'm like,
It's always a
All right,
pleasure with
Brad.
you
Well,
guys.
thank you.
Yep. Talk soon.
Brad, you're a rock star, dude. Thank
"Cheers,
you.
man."
Thanks, guys.
Tilly, I'm trying to remember, but for some reason my head keeps going blank. But we have something to do tomorrow. What is it?
My birthday.
Oh! How old? How old?
5.
Holy
What's the date?
smokes.
What's the date?
Grandpa's birthday.
Yeah, but what day? July what?
July 14th.
Oh, July 14th.
Dang.
Happy birthday. Everyone's going to hear it late, but they'd be happy belated birthday to you, okay? Wanna say bye-bye?
Bye.
I always forget that she's like right in front of Marley.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, I remember you texting me, be like, "Yo, Rachel's pregnant," and then like couple, like 3 months later, I was like, "Yo,
Yeah.
Meg's pregnant." And you got koozies made?
I did. 100.
100 koozies.
100. I got to get the shop up and running on the Instagram.
Well, if you guys want one, DM John.
No, just wait till I get the shop. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
the shop's
let's
got
wait
to
until
run
the
by.
shop is up.
Well, that'll be a good anchoring point. By the time this airs, the shop will be up and running.
Okay, so we got koozies coming up. I think they're like $10.
Yep.
Get one, support them. Always appreciate you guys doing the shares, stories. We got a ton of shares the last couple weeks
Yeah.
for good and bad reasons, but always appreciate the feedback. And as always, if we're doing a good job, make sure you leave us 5 stars on iTunes. Leave us in that #1 spot for construction-related podcasts. How's the Survey Monkey doing? If you guys want to give us
124
constructive
responses.
feedback, the Survey
Since
Monkey
last
link is on
week.
Instagram.
Yeah. Someone said, Toll Brothers CEO only interviewed by Johnny.
Oh,
that
was a
actually
suggested
would be
guest.
good.
As always, guys, this podcast is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. Considering a build with premium beveled siding? If so, make sure you have a look at Duration brand beveled siding. It's made out of polyash, a waste byproduct from coal production. Unlike premium wood products like cedar, Duration sidings come in 16-foot lengths without finger joints. It won't rot, it won't cup or check, and has no clearance restrictions. And you don't have to have your cuts end sealed or prime, and they're much more fire resistant. Most importantly, the material is indistinguishable from real wood once it's painted, and you'll save a lot of labor in terms of the install and the finish. To learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com and be sure to follow them on Instagram.